Okay, it is my pleasure to welcome to the program Tom Nelson. He is an announced Democratic candidate for the Senate seat coming up in 2022 from Wisconsin. He is currently the county executive. And Tom, you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation.
Try it.
Outagamie?
That's it. You got it.
All right.
I'm impressed. You were the first one outside, I think, Central Standard Time Zone to get that. So,
Wow.
That is a
sir, I had to tip my hat to you. If I had a hat, that's of course.
Thank you.
Sam does not know how to pronounce anything, so the fact that he got that right
That's
is
probably
just
why.
broken clock.
Emma Vigeland is here with us as well. Tom, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I should also say you're an author of One Day Stronger, which tells the story of basically saving a mill in the Fox River Valley. But let's just talk. I mean, let's just start with this. You jumped into this race even before the 2020 general election. Give us a sense of why.
Well, I think it got to the point, though, and I was at the point where a lot of people were at, which is I was just sick and tired of Ron Johnson, how he was getting away with things every hour, every day, every week. And I think the only way to deal with this is, of course, to challenge him and to show a clear contrast. Also, this was also the time, too, when Democrats and even a lot of independents and lean Republicans were getting into these U.S. Senate races, and there was a lot of interest. Now, I'm an underdog, and this was going to be a really challenging race. And so we got on hoping to tap some of that energy and interest, and it turned out to be the case because a lot of folks who were watching those races knew very well that it was only going to be a matter of a few weeks or a month when they started looking at 2022. And of course, the top race was going to be running against Ron Johnson.
So, all right, give me a sense of what's going on in Wisconsin politically. This is a state where the winner of the presidential election in the past two cycles has won by, thousands of votes. We're not even tens of thousands, really. And it is one that has had an incredible history of progressive roots, but also went through a fairly radical change under Scott Walker, at least in terms of getting rid of the right to unionize in the way that we know it. So, I mean, give us a sense of what the challenge is in Wisconsin and where the state is headed.
I think that we are making a pretty clear return to the progressive moorings of where this state was 100 years ago. This was the progressive state, but it's also important to point out, labor's been hit really hard in the last decade. But progressivism was challenged in this way in the 1920s and a part of the 1930s. But we got through that, which was the birth of the modern day Democratic Party. But I think there is, in fact, a populist vein running through the state, just as it is this country in general. And I think you're seeing, because, of course, Donald Trump didn't satiate those needs and those current concerns, it's going to fall to the Democratic Party to take up this challenge, to address what is the concerns of the people. And so this is a really good opportunity, not just for a Democrat to take back the seat, but for a progressive Democrat, someone who is very clear on the issues, whether it's Medicare for all, which I support, and it's very personal. My wife's recovering from cancer. My mom passed away from cancer, but they all had access to good health insurance. Over 30 million Americans cannot say the same thing. And this is also, I wouldn't say a long time coming, but at least 5 or 6 years. Keep in mind, Bernie Sanders, and I was a Bernie Sanders delegate and was endorsed by him in my congressional run. Keep in mind, Bernie Sanders won 71 of the 72 counties in this state. It's very clear that there is an appetite for the people of this state to elect progressive, and a progressive that is very strong, that is very clear in the issues, someone who is going to support H.R. 1. In fact, let me say this, be very, very clear. If you are a Democrat and you are running for the U.S. Senate, if you are a Democrat in the U.S. Senate and you don't support getting rid of the filibuster to support H.R. 1, you have absolutely, positively no business being in the U.S. Senate or in a Democratic primary.
Well, here. I wanted to bring the conversation quickly back to Ron Johnson because, are you surprised that you're running against Ron Johnson, given that he promised he wouldn't run for a third term going into his his second term when he ran in 2016? I say this facetiously because it seemed like an empty promise at the time, and it turns out that that's what it was.
I'm not surprised at all. He has zero credibility. He's never been clear up and upfront with the people of the state. He clearly does not represent the interests. I think he's not been honest with the people of the state. And it doesn't really matter if you are a Democrat or a Republican. I hear from Republicans all the time, this is someone that you simply cannot trust. He does not stick to his word. And of course, the clear case of this has been his pledge that he was not going to run for a third term. And not only do I think, and not only am I not surprised, that he has not made a decision, and actually it shouldn't be making a decision, he has made a decision. But the fact that he's waited this long, I think it's a pretty good chance that he is going to stick it out. And if he does, he's not going to win. He's not going to win. And this is, again, I want to go back to my answer before. That's why it's so important for us to elect a progressive. This seat is wide open for a Democrat. We don't need a centrist. We don't need someone who is milquetoast. We need someone who's going to go to Washington, lean hard on issues like Medicare for all. I'm not going to go to Washington to cover millions of people. I'm going to Washington to cover every single man, woman, and child in this country, because it's simply the right thing to do.
Well, why do you think a guy like Ron Johnson, who is obviously incredibly wealthy, and why do you think he won in Wisconsin? I mean, what happened in Wisconsin that a Russ Feingold gets beat by a Ron Johnson?
He got lucky. He simply got lucky, and that's been the story of his life. This is someone who has had life served up on a silver platter. He is he is a billionaire son-in-law. He was handed a business. He's worth millions of dollars now. He happened to run in what turned out to be a tough election cycle for Democrats in 2010, and I would say a tougher election cycle in 2016. And keep in mind, his margins weren't that great. And you had asked before, Sam, about how these statewide candidates have only won by thousands. And that's not always been the case here in Wisconsin. I'd say two things. Yes, our state is divided, but they want to have a candidate who's very clear on the issues. But number two, don't forget that we have been hit hard with voting restrictions, voter ID. And this is also personal to me because my wife was a co-plaintiff on one of the last lawsuits to be settled before the 2020 election, allowing absentee ballots to be returned after a longer period of time. So I think when you look at a seat that a Democrat wins by half a point or 1 point, in reality, they're actually winning by 2 or 3 points, which I think is more consistent with the statewide margins in other states across the country.
Let me get a sense of what your thoughts are in terms of immigration. I mean, it's hard to sort of anticipate what you would see in the coming years. But at one point, the Biden administration, in addition to having to do stuff administratively, there has to be some type of response to the failure for us to provide for immigrants in this country and to resolve this. This is a question that's been going on for 20, 30 years, maybe 40 years. What's your perspective on immigration? What needs to happen?
I think what we need is, first of all, we need to have a clear path to citizenship. You have a lot of folks here in this country who are contributing to society, whether it's economically or socially or culturally. They're giving our communities a lot. In fact, one of the churches that my wife and I attend is a Catholic church that has the largest Hispanic population. Now, I say that it's important to point that out, their contributions to this country, but let's be clear. This isn't about economics or culture or actually, any of those issues. This is about, we're talking about human beings. We're talking about people who are coming to the border of our country, who are fleeing persecution and violence. They're being separated from their families. We need to have, an immigration system that is going to address those issues. I should also say too, though, keep in mind, there has never been a serious piece of immigration legislation that's come to the floor of the Congress by the Republicans, despite all the rhetoric, despite everything that they've done. And I've been hit hard on this issue. I was hit hard with a Willie Horton-esque ad in 2016. And the reason why Republicans have not been serious about immigration is because it is part of their business model. That's the reason why the U.S. Chamber of Commerce opposes that. That's the reason why the Wisconsin or the National Restaurant Association, that's why the Koch brothers have opposed it. And, we're going up against some forces that really don't want to change anything. And I think that that's going to be a problem for passing any type of immigration reform.
Talking about going up against forces that don't want to change anything. I mean, a lot of what Biden's infrastructure package has sparked was a conversation amongst Democrats and progressives about what's too big, what's too small, right? You have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying she favors a $10 trillion infrastructure investment in order to combat climate change. What's your view on the Green New Deal and how we're going to take on the behemoth of the fossil fuel industry as progressives, and how you would do so in the Senate?
I think along with Medicare for all, we have to have a very aggressive Green New Deal. We need to have a Green New Deal that is attached to net zero emissions proposal. And as a county executive, we've done some of those initiatives at a county level. We have a general aviation facility for which is a net zero facility in which it produces the renewable energy that it consumes. Examples like that. And I also think that Wisconsin is in a good position. A senator, a representative from Wisconsin is in a good position to do that because this is the birthplace of the modern day environmental movement with Gaylord Nelson. And we're also one of the top manufacturing countries in the world or in the nation. And so you need to have a blue-green coalition in order to make the Green New Deal succeed. Clean energy is the future because humanity is the future. And I think that we should be as aggressive as possible. We need to look at this timetable and any type of energy policy. The question should be, does this move us toward a renewable future? If the answer is yes, we should support that. If it's not, we should push back at that and not give it really any consideration.
Tom Nelson, folks can go where to get more information about your candidacy?
NelsonFordWI.com, NelsonFordWI.com, same for Twitter and Facebook, and my book, OneDayStrongerBook.com, OneDayStrongerBook.com. It's a great website. My wife did it for us, so we're doing very well, and hope we can get that message out about how labor is the future of manufacturing and the economy in this country.
I appreciate your time today, and we hope to catch up with you, and good luck with your race.
Thank you, sir. Good to be on.